Good afternoon, I'm Leila Masimova and you're watching AnewZ. Let's see your headlines. A Russian drone attack on Kharkiv killed 3 as Zelensky hails fresh EU sanctions on Russia. 3-day mourning declared in Austria following a school shooting in Graz. President Trump says the National Guard will remain in LA until there is no longer danger. Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, has suffered another attack. A Russian drone assault overnight has left at least 3 people dead and at least 60 injured, including children.
Kharkiv, just 30 kilometers from the Russian border, is once again reeling from destruction. A deadly Russian drone assault on Ukraine's second largest city has left at least 3 people dead and dozens injured, 7 of them children. Kharkiv mayor says that the overnight attack lasted just 9 minutes, but in that short span, 17 drones rained destruction across the city. Fires engulfed 15 apartments in a 5-story residential block in the Slobodski district.
Kharkiv is under attack yet again. 17 Shahed drones hit the city. As of now, 3 5-story apartment blocks are damaged. Also, private dwellings and industrial enterprises were hit.
There was a fire. I felt the smoke. I got out. I didn't have a chance to take any documents or money. There was a lot of smoke. It was impossible to stay in smoke and look for something.
Regional Governor Oleh Sinyahubov says the large-scale attack also struck a trolleybus depot, several vehicles, playgrounds and local businesses. Ukraine's Air Force later claimed that its air defences intercepted 49 of 85 drones launched by Russia overnight. The Ukrainian State Emergency Service also said that the Russian army carried out an airstrike on Odessa and Sumy in Ukraine. This latest assault in Kharkiv follows one of the most intense weeks of Russian bombardments since the war began. Just days earlier, 4 people were killed and 40 injured in a series of attacks on the same city. Russia has not commented on the strike.
Following the latest attack on Ukraine, the European Commission has unveiled a sweeping new sanctions package against Russia. It's 18th since the start of the war. The proposal aims to further choke Moscow's energy revenues and financial sector.
The European Union is stepping up pressure on Moscow with a fresh set of sanctions aimed at Russia's energy industry and financial system.
Russia's goal is not peace, it is to impose the rule of might. Therefore, we are ramping up pressure on Russia because strength is the only language that Russia will understand.
Among the key proposals is a transaction ban on the Nord Stream gas pipelines, blacklisting more ships from Russia's shadow fleet, and a cut to the G7 oil price cap. The goal is to limit Moscow's revenue from oil exports, which can be used to finance military activities, while still allowing the oil to be traded globally.
There is no return to the past. We also propose to lower the oil price cap from $60 to $45 per barrel. Since the oil cap was introduced in 2023, oil prices have gone down.
But Ukraine's president says it's still not enough, and he's calling for a tougher cap of just $30 a barrel.
It would force them to seek peace, because no other argument works. I know some partners are discussing compromise figures, but enough compromises with Russia. Every compromise delays peace. We are asking for a real reduction in the price of Russian oil. That is how we truly bring the war closer to an end.
The proposed measures will be discussed by G7 leaders in Canada, with EU officials pushing for a united front.
My assumption is that we do that together as G7. We have started that as G7. It was successful as a measure from the G7, and I want to continue this measure as G7.
Moscow, meanwhile, has extended its ban on oil sales to any buyer complying with the Western cap. EU nations will begin debating the sanction package this week, but internal divisions remain, with countries such as Slovakia and Hungary expressing concern over how this will impact them at home.
The Austrian city of Graz is in mourning after a suspect gunman killed 10 people in a secondary school shooting on Tuesday. Police believe the 21-year-old suspect took his own life in the school bathroom.
A city in mourning. Graz Hauptplatz has become a sea of silence, lit only by candlelight. Residents gathered here after Austria's deadliest school shooting, where a former pupil opened fire, killing 10 people before turning the gun on himself.
When you hear about it, you have so much sympathy for the people. Maybe you could have known someone, you know, people in your circle who knew people, and this is an example of solidarity, and you grieve together, and together it is easier to cope.
As candles burned and prayers were said, the cathedral held a silence that echoed across a country still coming to terms with the shock of it all.
Wir tragen gemeinsam das Unerträgliche.
We bear the unbearable together, says the bishop. Elsewhere in Graz, hundreds queued to give blood, desperate to help in any way.
I am here because I wanted to do something. I felt helpless with the news, and I decided to come to at least give something from what I can give to the situation.
We all can't believe it, and it feels like a nightmare. We are shocked. The whole city is shocked.
The suspect, a 21-year-old, had once been a student at the school. Authorities say he acted alone, his motive still unclear. A period of national mourning begins today for 3 days. For now, people gather, not for answers, but to be together in the silence left behind.
Police and military forces are scaling up their presence as the curfew kicks in for Los Angeles amid nationwide protests over the U.S. government's immigration crackdown. President Trump defends the move as necessary to protect national security and enforce the law, despite growing backlash from state leaders and immigrant rights groups.
Tensions escalated in Los Angeles on Tuesday as California Highway Patrol officers arrested 67 anti-immigration and customs enforcement protesters who had entered the US 101 freeway, prompting officials to declare a public safety threat. The arrests came after demonstrators refused orders to disperse, with officers detaining individuals and loading them into patrol vehicles. The protest, one of several erupting across the nation, targeted ongoing ICE raids and US President Donald Trump's hardline immigration policies.
We are all here and thriving because of people immigrating from other countries should speak for itself, and the way that our families and communities have been apprehended and torn apart demonstrates a lack of understanding and ignorance of our history and basic economy.
This is basic human rights. They're arresting people that are working, they're arresting people at school, at graduation. That's sad and it's heartbreaking. We don't feel safe. We're standing up for the children that can't stand up for themselves or their parents.
On Tuesday, the president used a speech honoring soldiers to defend his decision to deploy troops to LA.
Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen.
Similar scenes unfolded in Chicago, where demonstrators clashed with police, leading to arrests amid attempts to breach security lines. Solidarity protests were also held in Atlanta and Washington, D.C., amplifying a nationwide outcry against the administration's immigration crackdown. Street protests in Los Angeles began Friday and have mostly remained peaceful, concentrated within a few downtown blocks. However, confrontations with law enforcement have grown increasingly tense since the military deployment. Trump has vowed to step up deportations and bolster ICE operations, setting a daily goal of 3,000 migrant arrests, a move critics say targets vulnerable communities and fuels public unrest.
And joining us live from Ankara, Turkey, Dr. Melih Demirtaş, researcher at Cappadocia University. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My first question would be, Trump issued travel ban for citizens of a number of countries. How is this reflecting Trump's foreign policies?
Yes, Mr. Trump's era or Mr. Trump's policies are, I think, maybe in international politics, but also in domestic affairs of the United States. It means a lot for these policymakers. I think the new generation of these thinkers in the sense of this policy-making standards. Mr. Trump's because thinks and he really applies these thinkings and his maybe philosophy. So sometimes harshly, sometimes very decisively, and he really can make an effect on these policies, especially in domestic affairs, but also we saw some of these results in international politics too. But in American, I think, domestic politics, we always seen such problems, I mean, such restrictions for some nations or nationalities. But Mr. Trump's, I think, sayings against some nationalities or some countries, it can create some negative atmosphere, especially regarding for international politics or also international experts level. We can say in such an atmosphere, Mr. Trump and his cadre, his bureaucrats, will change slowly, maybe this thinking or this maybe realist understanding for American politics for a more moderate sense. The time will show us, but still it is so strict. And new demonstrations will continue.
Could you give us some insights of the situation unfolding in California, particularly in Los Angeles, and what steps could be taken to de-escalate the tensions on the ground?
As I said, in American history, especially if you look to the 20th century, the peoples are always reflecting their grievances, their opposition to maybe the authority or to central or also local authorities. In some, of course, federal districts, I mean, as you said, the California district is very famous for many commentators. It's like a state with its budget, with its popularity, but also with its people, because it is so near to other countries, it is so near to other cultures. And I can say that the Californian people, also with the understanding of some more liberal worldview, can really show their opposition so openly. I think even the governor of California now really openly shows this opposition to the central authority, I mean to Mr. Trump. And we will, watch what can be the next step, because Mr. Trump in the international politics, but also in domestic politics, will be like in a limited position, and he must, I think, slowly turn to his face with a much more moderate sense. I think so.
And Dr. Demirtaş, looking ahead, once the protests subside, what political or social shifts might we expect in California? Do you think that this unrest could lead to serious challenges to the current international relations between US and Latin America?
Latin American countries, in their bureaucracy, in their economic sectors, of course, in their international dependencies or interdependencies, of course, they have a special or unique relationship with the United States. As I said, this 20th century signifies or symbolizes also this interdependence can somehow go in a negative direction, but somehow also in a positive direction, especially after the end of the Cold War. We can see in some presidency areas this interdependency or this positive atmosphere can shape this American continent, I mean both northern and southern continent, in a positive manner. But in Mr. Trump's, I think, philosophy, or in Mr. Trump's maybe protectionist ideals, because he always said that these protectionist principles must be continued for the sake of the American economy, for the sake of American glorious history, quote unquote. But maybe Mr. Trump somehow forgets that the Latin American culture, we can accept or not, the Spanish culture, the Latin culture, also the European culture, these cultures are all maybe create this amalgamation of this American continent. And I think that Latin American or American bureaucrats or diplomats, they will change their opinions more intimately in the coming days, in the coming months maybe.
Well, thank you for your answers, Dr. Demirtas.
Thank you very much for having me.
US and Chinese officials have reached an agreement on a trade framework seeking to ease trade tensions following a two-day talk held in London.
The United States and China have agreed on a trade framework as both sides seek to de-escalate trade tensions. Top officials from Washington and Beijing held talks in London for 2 days in which China's exports of rare earth minerals were high on the agenda. The US has previously blamed China for being slow to release exports of rare earth metals and magnets, which are essential for manufacturing everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. Officials say the agreed framework should resolve restrictions on rare earth minerals and magnets.
I think both sides had extra impetus in order to get things done because we both have our presidents behind us, pushing us to make sure we take care of our respective sides.
Over the last couple of days, the Chinese and US teams have had in-depth exchanges. Our communication has been very professional, rational, in-depth and candid. The two sides agreed in principle on the framework for implementing the consensus of the two heads of state in their phone call on June 5th, as well as the consensus of the meeting in Geneva.
The latest round of talks followed a long-anticipated phone call last week between US President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Both sides engaged in an economic standoff after Trump announced sweeping tariffs on imports from a number of countries earlier this year, with China being the hardest hit. The Asian country responded with retaliatory levies. The US and Chinese officials will now take the proposal from the London talks back to their leaders for approval before it can be implemented.
Argentina's Supreme Court has upheld a 6-year prison sentence for former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner on charges of defrauding the state. The court also confirmed a lifetime ban on her holding public office. The verdict stems from 2022 case for a fraud scheme that steered public road work projects in the Patagonia to close a lie while she was president.
On Tuesday, Argentina's Supreme Court upheld a 2022 guilty verdict against former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, sentencing her to 6 years in prison for defrauding the state and banning her from holding public office. The 72-year-old, who served as president from 2007 to 2015, was found guilty of directing roadwork contracts in the Patagonia region to a close ally during her presidency, a scheme prosecutors called a major corruption scandal. Kirchner has denied any wrongdoing. In a statement on Tuesday, she called the decision wrong and argued that her prison sentence will not improve the lives of everyday Argentines. Despite the conviction, Kirchner had recently announced plans to run in September's legislative elections in Buenos Aires province. The ruling prompted current President Javier Milei to praise the decision as a victory for the country's institutions. Justice. The end. The Republic is functioning, he wrote in a post on social media platform X. A lower court will now be responsible for deciding whether Cristina Fernández de Kirchner, due to her age, qualifies for house arrest rather than serving her sentence in prison. This decision will take into account legal provisions for elderly individuals in Argentina's justice system and could significantly affect how her sentence is carried out. The outcome may also influence the broader political response to the Supreme Court's ruling.
Azerbaijan and Turkey exchanged flags at the Umid Bridge in Nakhchivan, marking the start of joint military exercises. The maneuvers included computer-assisted command and stealth exercises as well as live-fire tactical drills.
Within the framework of the military cooperation agreement between Azerbaijan and Turkey, a flag exchange ceremony was held in Nakhchivan in preparation for the Unbreakable Brotherhood 2025 computer-assisted command staff exercise and the Mustafa Kemal Ataturk 2025 joint live-fire tactical exercise. The flag team departed from the Joint Armed Forces JF General Staff and moved toward the Sadarak border checkpoint in the direction of the Umid Bridge over the Aras River. At the same time, the Turkish flag team advanced from Doğu Bayazıt district in Ara province toward the ceremony location. At the Umid Bridge, the flag exchange ceremony was held with the playing of the state anthem of Azerbaijan and the Independence March of Turkey. After the ceremony, the military units and equipment participating in the exercise began moving from the border checkpoint toward Nakhchivan. According to the exercise plan, tank, mechanized and commando units will carry out various combat training tasks supported by artillery, air assault and aviation units.
Georgia's parliament has approved friendship groups with numerous countries except Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, after no MPs volunteered to join groups with the Baltic states, citing unfriendly policies as the reason. Nini Nikolashvili has more from Tbilisi.
In a recent development from the Georgian parliament, the Bureau has approved the formation of parliamentary friendship groups with a wide range of countries, except for 3, Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. While the parliamentary resolution has called for establishing such friendship groups with all 3 Baltic states, it could not be created as no deputies has volunteered to join. The Parliamentary Friendship Group is a delegation of lawmakers created to strengthen diplomatic, cultural and legislative ties between 2 nations. The Parliament Speaker, Shalva Papuashvili, cited unfriendly policies from these 3 Baltic states towards Georgia as the reason, stated that no Georgian member of parliaments were willing to engage with these countries perceived as hostiles. He urged the parliaments of Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia to adopt more friendly approach that would give Georgia an opportunity to create such groups. There has been no official response from the parliaments or foreign ministries from Lithuania, Latvia or Estonia, highlighting Georgia's complicated and strained relations with its traditional Baltic allies. It's Nini Nikolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan is taking steps against their country's top church leader. He plans to form a coordination group tasked with removing the head of the Armenian church from his position. Pashinyan accused him of breaking his vow of celibacy and said he should step down. Armenia's Prime Minister also announced that he will personally select the first 10 members of the group. Kazakhstan has launched the largest container hub in the Caspian Sea region, located in the port city of Aktau. Built in partnership with Chinese and local port operators, the facility was completed ahead of the schedule. Equipped with modern technology and advanced logistics, the hub is set to speed up container processing. It's also expected to strengthen Kazakhstan's role as a transit point on major east-west and north-south trade routes. The Turkic world continues to deepen its economic ties in the region. The second Turkic States Trade and Investment Cooperation Forum and Fair has officially opened in Baku, capital of Azerbaijan.
The second Turkic States Trade and Investment Cooperation Forum and Fair opened its doors to visitors in Baku, the capital of Azerbaijan. Building on the momentum of the first fair held in Istanbul last year, this year's edition brings together businesses, institutions and innovators from across the Turkic world to discuss trade, technology and shared economic strategies. The fair serves as a dynamic platform for companies and institutions to showcase products and cutting-edge technologies in more than 20 sectors, from agriculture and energy to digital innovation and fintech.
The main purpose of the Turkish Trade Fair is to ensure that the private sector also benefits from the developing cooperation areas between the Turkic states. The Turkic states cooperate in more than 20 sectors. Product groups are exhibited in more than 20 sectors at the fair. Our aim is to further increase the economic cooperation between the Turkic states. At the same time, we aim to introduce the unknown products of the Turkic states to each other.
This year's forum places particular emphasis on strategic partnerships, branding and innovation. Bilateral business meetings between participating countries aim to turn dialogue into action, with the hope of creating joint ventures, shared brands and cross-border industrial cooperation. With participation from 10 countries and visitors from more than 20 others, the fair also reflects growing international interest in the Turkic region as a unified economic bloc.
That's all we have for now. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.